Police sirens wail as detectives escort the longtime housekeeper out of the luxurious penthouse in handcuffs. The billionaire father stands frozen, realizing his daughter's mysterious 3-year illness was no accident. A single nanny noticed what no doctor could. One observation, one conversation, one truth that changes everything. Before we dive in, comment where in the world you are watching from, and don't forget to click subscribe. The test results sat on the mahogany desk in Dr. Whitmore's office like a death sentence. Marcus Ashford, one of the wealthiest men in America, stared at the papers without reading them again. He already knew every word. His daughter Emma had been born with a genetic condition no one could name. She was 6 years old, and no matter what he spent, no matter which specialist he flew in from around the world, nothing changed. Her skin had developed patches of deep purple discoloration that spread like a stain. Her small body was constantly weak and prone to infections that knocked her down for weeks at a time. The doctors whispered the same phrase in every consultation room: idiopathic, unknown origin. We don't know what it is. Those words had become Marcus's nightmare. He was a man who had built an empire through knowledge and control. He had negotiated billion-dollar deals before breakfast. He had outsmarted competitors who thought they were smarter than him. But Emma's body was something his money couldn't buy solutions for, and that reality was tearing him apart in ways he never expected. Marcus was 52 years old. He carried himself with the confidence of someone who had never been told no in his life. His office occupied the entire top floor of a downtown skyscraper. His suits cost more than most people's monthly rent. His watch was a Patek Philippe worth 6 figures. Everything about him spoke power and success and complete control of his environment. But when he looked at Emma, none of that mattered. When he sat beside her hospital bed and held her fragile hand, all his achievements felt hollow. His wife, Catherine, had left 3 years ago. She couldn't handle the stress of a sick child, she said. She couldn't handle watching Emma suffer. She needed to focus on herself. Marcus had never understood that reasoning. To him, you didn't abandon ship when the waters got rough. You fought harder. You dug deeper. You found solutions. Catherine had tried. He knew that. But eventually she had moved to California, remarried a real estate developer, and from what Marcus heard through mutual friends, barely thought about Emma anymore. That suited Marcus fine. Emma had him. That was enough. He had promised himself that when Emma was born, he would be everything for her. He would give her everything. He would protect her from every pain this world could inflict. He had failed at that last part, and it consumed him every single moment of every single day. Marcus pulled himself away from the desk and walked to the windows. His office was so high up that the people on the street below looked like insects. The city sprawled out beneath him, millions of lives happening, and somewhere down there was someone who could help Emma. He just had to find them. He would find them. He had to. Emma had been diagnosed with the condition when she was 3 years old. At first, it was just a rash, small discolored patches on her arms that came and went. Marcus thought nothing of it. Children got rashes. It was normal. But the patches didn't fade. They deepened in color. They spread. They became permanent. By the time Emma turned 4, the purple splotches covered nearly 30% of her body. Doctors ran tests. They took blood samples and spinal fluid. They did genetic sequencing and metabolic panels. Every test came back confusing. Some markers suggested a rare autoimmune disorder. Others pointed toward something circulatory. Still others hinted at an unknown syndrome with no name in medical literature. Emma's pediatrician referred Marcus to a dermatologist. The dermatologist referred him to a hematologist. The hematologist suggested a geneticist. The geneticist consulted with infectious disease specialists. Months became years. Medications were prescribed and discontinued. Treatments started with hope and ended in disappointment. Emma's condition didn't improve. It slowly worsened. The patches became darker. Her energy declined. She caught every illness that passed through her school. She missed more days than she attended. By age 6, Emma had seen more doctors than most people see in a lifetime. She had been poked and prodded and questioned and scanned. She had grown afraid of hospitals, afraid of the white coats, afraid of needles. But she never complained. That was the thing that broke Marcus the most. Emma never complained. She accepted her pain the way children do, as simply another fact of her existence, something that was just part of being alive. Marcus had everything money could buy, but he couldn't buy his daughter's health. He couldn't buy her future. He couldn't even buy a diagnosis that would point him toward a cure. The frustration had curdled into something darker over the years. Not quite despair, but close. A kind of desperate resignation that took hold in the quiet moments before sleep, when Marcus lay in his bed in the master suite of his penthouse apartment, and wondered what the point of all his success really was. Emma lived with him. Her bedroom was on the same floor as his, 3 doors down from his master suite. The penthouse occupied the top 2 floors of a luxury building in the heart of downtown. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, a private elevator connected to the garage. Everything was designed for convenience and privacy, and the kind of luxury that most people could never even imagine. But Emma would have traded it all for the ability to play outside without getting winded. She would have given up every toy, every advantage, for the chance to just feel normal in her own skin. Marcus knew that. He could see it in the way she looked at other children on the rare occasion she was well enough to go out in public. She watched them run and play with a hunger in her eyes that broke his heart. He tried to create that world for her inside the penthouse. He had a small playground installed on the terrace. He hired tutors so she could attend a private school curriculum from home. He brought in physical therapists to help her maintain strength even when she was too sick to leave the apartment. He did everything he could think of, and yet every morning when she woke up, the purple patches were still there. Every afternoon when she came home from tutoring, she was still exhausted. Every night when he tucked her into bed, she was still sick, and he was still helpless. The household staff had rotated several times over the years. Marcus employed a housekeeper named Dorothy, who had been with them since Emma was born. Dorothy was in her 60s, stern and efficient, but Emma loved her. There was a chef named Raymond, who prepared specialized meals trying to address every possible nutritional deficiency. There were nurses who came in shifts to monitor Emma's vital signs. There was a tutor named Paul who worked 3 afternoons a week. None of them could fix what was broken in Emma's body. All they could do was manage the symptoms and try to make her as comfortable as possible. Marcus had tried every conventional treatment and half a dozen experimental ones. He had spent millions on consultations with world-renowned specialists. He had donated substantial sums to research institutions studying rare genetic disorders, hoping that his generosity might accelerate their progress toward a cure. Nothing worked. Emma's condition remained a mystery, and her prognosis remained uncertain. The doctors were never quite willing to say she was dying, but they didn't say she was going to get better either. They said things like, "We'll monitor her closely, and we'll hope for the best, and we'll continue to explore all available options." What they meant was that nobody knew what was happening to her, and nobody knew how to stop it. Marcus had always believed that enough money and enough determination could solve any problem. Emma was teaching him that belief was naive. Some things couldn't be bought. Some fights couldn't be won through force of will alone. Some doors simply didn't open no matter how hard you knocked. That knowledge sat inside Marcus like broken glass. It cut him from the inside out every single day. The nanny application came through an agency that specialized in high-net-worth household placements. The agency had screened candidates and presented 3 options. All had impeccable credentials. All had extensive experience working with children. All had clean background checks and references. Marcus chose Amelia Williams almost by accident. She was the middle option, not the most expensive nor the cheapest. Her resume was solid, but unremarkable. She had worked in several wealthy households over the years. She had experience with children suffering from chronic illness. She seemed competent and professional and forgettable. That was what Marcus wanted. He didn't need someone charismatic or brilliant. He needed someone reliable who would care for Emma without drama or complications. Amelia arrived on a gray Monday morning in late September. She was a tall woman in her mid-30s with dark skin and steady eyes that didn't waver when she met Marcus's gaze during their initial interview. She was dressed plainly, no makeup, her hair tied back in a simple braid. She listened more than she spoke. When Marcus described Emma's condition and her medical history and the various treatments that had been tried, Amelia didn't interrupt. She didn't offer opinions or suggestions. She simply listened and took notes in a small leather notebook. When he finished, She asked one question. What does Emma enjoy? Marcus had to think about that. What did Emma enjoy? It wasn't something he'd been asked before, and he realized with a start that he couldn't immediately answer it. Emma had been sick for so long that her life had become defined by her illness rather than by her preferences. She enjoyed reading, he said finally. She likes fantasy stories where the characters have adventures. She has a collection of stuffed animals that she's named after characters from books. She likes hot chocolate on cold days, and she likes when her toys are organized by color. Amelia nodded and made notes. During the first week, she seemed to focus entirely on learning Emma's routines and preferences. She observed her eating patterns, her energy levels throughout the day, her moods and triggers. She asked Dorothy about the household rhythms. She asked Raymond about Emma's food preferences. She asked the nurses about Emma's medical needs. She asked Paul about what subjects Emma found most engaging in her studies. But she didn't push Emma to be different or do more or improve. She simply existed in Emma's world and observed. Marcus had hired her as a temporary arrangement, a 3-month contract to see if it worked out. He was already wondering if he'd made a mistake. Amelia seemed competent enough, but she also seemed passive. She didn't try to engage Emma in therapy or recommend new treatments or suggest alternative approaches. She just cared for her and let her be. By the second week, Marcus was considering letting her go. Then he came home early one afternoon and found something that changed his perspective. Emma was sitting in the kitchen with Amelia, and they were doing something Marcus had never seen his daughter do before. They were cooking. Not play cooking, real cooking. Amelia was showing Emma how to measure ingredients and mix them together. They were making chocolate chip cookies from scratch. Emma was concentrating hard, her small hands carefully counting scoops of flour into a bowl. She was breathing hard from the effort. Her usual pallor flushed slightly from the exertion, but she was smiling. Marcus stood in the doorway, unnoticed, and watched. He hadn't seen Emma smile like that in months. Not a polite smile or a brave smile. A real smile that reached her eyes and changed her entire face. When the cookies came out of the oven, Emma tasted one before they'd even cooled completely. She burned her mouth on the hot chocolate chips and laughed. Actually laughed, a sound so rare that Marcus felt something crack open inside his chest. Amelia caught sight of him then. She didn't seem embarrassed or apologetic about the messy kitchen or the disruption of routine. She simply nodded at him with those steady eyes and said, "Emma wanted to learn something new today. I thought cookies might be good." He didn't know what to say. He had hired specialists and therapists and doctors. None of them had given Emma a moment like this. Amelia had done it with flour and butter and chocolate chips, and the simple act of paying attention to what his daughter actually wanted. That night, as he tucked Emma into bed, she held his hand tightly and asked if Amelia could teach her more recipes. She said, "Daddy, I want to learn to make the things that taste good. I want to know how to do something that makes me feel happy." Marcus had looked at his small, sick daughter with her purple patches and her fragile body, and her heart so much braver than his own, and he had promised her that yes, Amelia could teach her anything she wanted to learn. Over the next few weeks, something shifted in Emma's world. It wasn't a cure. Her physical condition remained unchanged. The purple patches didn't fade. Her susceptibility to illness didn't improve, but her spirit seemed to lift in a way that had been absent for years. She was learning to bake. Amelia taught her methodically and patiently, breaking down each recipe into manageable steps. Emma learned to make cookies and brownies and simple bread. She learned to crack eggs and beat them, and understand how ingredients work together. More importantly, she was spending time doing something she chose, rather than something prescribed by doctors. She was creating something tangible that brought her joy, and didn't depend on her being healthy or strong. She was just being a child, engaged in a simple task. Marcus watched this from a distance, still skeptical but increasingly moved by the change in his daughter's demeanor. He asked Amelia about it one afternoon. He found her in the kitchen cleaning up after one of Emma's baking sessions. "Why do you think this is helping her so much?" he asked. "She doesn't have to do it to get better," Amelia said simply. "She doesn't have to do it because a doctor told her to, or because her father thinks it will heal her. She does it because she wants to, because it makes her happy. That's what she needs most right now. Not another treatment, not another specialist, just permission to be happy while she's sick. Marcus didn't respond immediately. He wasn't used to people speaking to him this way. Most of his employees were deferential, careful to validate his decisions and follow his lead. Amelia didn't do either. She spoke as though she was talking to another parent rather than her employer. She spoke about Emma with a clear-eyed assessment that didn't try to protect his feelings or congratulate his efforts. She just told the truth about what his daughter needed. Over time, Marcus realized that his hiring of Amelia might have been the best decision he'd made in years. She brought a perspective that was unfamiliar to his world of money and specialists and resources directed toward solving problems through force. With Amelia, things were simpler. Emma was a child who was sick. She deserved to be happy while she was sick. That was the starting point for every decision. Everything flowed from that understanding. Marcus found himself coming home earlier than usual. He wanted to be there for the baking sessions. He wanted to watch Emma learn and discover and engage with the world on her own terms. He wanted to be part of it, even if his presence sometimes made Emma more careful or reserved. One afternoon, as Emma was making an apple cinnamon cake with Amelia's guidance, Marcus asked if he could help. Emma hesitated, her natural caution warring with her desire to include him. Finally, she said, "You have to wash your hands first, Daddy, and you have to do exactly what Amelia says. You can't try to do it differently." Marcus agreed solemnly to these terms. As he stood in the kitchen with his daughter and her caregiver, carefully following instructions and measuring ingredients, he felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. Not happiness exactly, because nothing could truly make him happy while Emma was suffering, but a kind of acceptance, a presence in the moment without constantly reaching toward a solution that didn't exist. It was Amelia who first noticed something in the kitchen that made her curious. It was a Tuesday afternoon in mid-October, nearly a month after she'd started working for the Ashfords. Emma was napping after a baking session, and Amelia was cleaning up. She was putting away ingredients when she noticed a bottle tucked behind the flour container. It was a supplement, brightly colored label, promises of immune support and nutritional completeness. Amelia checked the label more carefully. The ingredient list was extensive, filled with vitamins and minerals and plant extracts. She recognized a few of them. She didn't recognize many others. Some of the names seemed unfamiliar, almost made up sounding. She stood there for a long moment, holding the bottle and reading the label again. Then she put it back exactly where she had found it and didn't mention it to anyone. That evening, after Emma had gone to bed and Marcus was in his study, Amelia knocked on the door. Marcus looked up from his computer where he'd been reviewing financial reports. "Yes?" he said, his tone polite but distracted. "I found a supplement in the kitchen," Amelia said. "One I didn't recognize. I wondered if you knew about it." Marcus frowned slightly. "What supplement?" "Dorothy must have purchased it," he said dismissively. "We're always trying different things to help Emma's immune system. The doctors recommend supplements. It's probably something they suggested." Amelia nodded, but said nothing further. She had learned quickly that Marcus didn't appreciate long conversations or extensive questioning. He was a man of action and decision, not contemplation. But something about that bottle nagged at her. The way it was hidden. The way the label looked like it might have come from a specialty source rather than a pharmacy. The ingredients she didn't recognize. She had worked with sick children before. She knew what legitimate supplements looked like. This didn't feel right, but she couldn't articulate why. Over the next week, Amelia paid attention to what went into Emma's body. The 3 meals a day prepared by Raymond, the specific foods Emma requested, the water she drank from a filtered pitcher, and most importantly, what Emma was consuming that no one actively supervising. One afternoon, when Dorothy was cleaning elsewhere in the apartment and Raymond was in his quarters off the kitchen, Amelia watched Emma open a cabinet and pull out the colored supplement bottle. She observed as Emma took a small spoonful and added it to a glass of juice. Amelia felt something shift inside her, something that looked like concern but also looked like the beginning of clarity. When Emma set down the glass and wasn't looking, Amelia picked it up and smelled it. Then she tasted a tiny drop. The supplement was bitter, almost chemical tasting, underneath the sweetness of the juice. The flavor was completely unfamiliar. After Emma drank the juice, Amelia continued to observe. She noticed no immediate reaction, but Emma seemed slightly more tired than usual that afternoon. She asked to lie down early. She slept for 4 hours, which was unusual. When she woke up, the purple patches on her skin looked slightly darker, or maybe that was just Amelia's heightened awareness making her see things that weren't there. Amelia pulled out her phone and searched for the supplement name on the label. What she found made her blood run cold. The supplement was a blend of rare plant extracts that had been linked to several health issues in online forums and medical discussions. People reported that taking it had caused joint problems, digestive issues, and some had reported changes in skin pigmentation. The product had been investigated by the FDA twice, and each time had managed to escape real regulation through clever labeling technicalities. And in one particularly troubling article, someone had written about their child who had become mysteriously ill after their parent gave them this supplement, claiming it had caused symptoms very similar to what was being described as an unknown genetic condition. Amelia sat on her bed in her small room off the kitchen, her heart racing. She was making a leap. She was connecting dots that might not belong together, and if she was wrong, she was about to accuse Dorothy of poisoning a child, which was a very serious thing indeed. But if she was right, she had just uncovered the reason that Emma had been sick for 3 years. The bottle of supplement sat on the shelf in the kitchen. Amelia had photographed it and done additional research. Every source she found pointed to the same conclusion. This particular blend of plant extracts could absolutely cause the exact symptoms that Emma was experiencing. The purple patches that looked like bruising but weren't. The chronic infections that came and went. The fatigue. The sensitivity to various substances. It all matched. The question was whether it was being given to Emma intentionally or accidentally. Dorothy had been with the family since Emma's birth. She had watched Emma grow. She had been there during every illness, every hospital visit, every specialist appointment. It seemed unlikely that she would deliberately harm the child. But people were capable of surprising things, and Amelia had learned long ago not to underestimate the capacity for cruelty that humans possessed. She decided to approach this carefully. She decided to gather more evidence before saying anything to Marcus. For the next week, Amelia documented everything. She noted when Emma took the supplement. She recorded Emma's energy levels afterward. She photographed the bottle and its label multiple times. She saved the articles she'd found online to her phone. She even managed to collect a small amount of the supplement in a sealed container, intending to have it tested if it became necessary. During this week, she paid close attention to Emma. She noticed that the days Emma consumed the supplement were the days she was sicker than usual. She noticed that when Dorothy was particularly focused on ensuring Emma took her juice, that's when Emma would be given the supplement first. And she noticed one afternoon when she came upon Dorothy giving Emma the supplement that Dorothy's expression was strange, almost triumphant, like she was getting away with something. Amelia's blood ran cold. She began to think that maybe this was intentional. Maybe Dorothy had been making Emma sick for 3 years. The question was why. Amelia knew she had to tell Marcus, but she also knew how this would sound. She was going to walk into her employer's study and tell him that his longtime housekeeper had been poisoning his daughter. He would either believe her, or he would fire her. There was no middle ground. She took a deep breath and prepared the evidence she had gathered. Before she did anything, she wanted to be absolutely certain. She wanted to observe one more time, one more piece of proof that would be undeniable. The opportunity came 3 days later. Amelia heard Dorothy in the kitchen preparing Emma's afternoon juice. She positioned herself where she could see but not be obviously watching. She saw Dorothy pull out the supplement bottle. She saw Dorothy look around to make sure she was alone. And then she saw something that made everything clear. Dorothy opened the bottle carefully and measured out a spoonful. But before she added it to the juice, she smiled. A cold, calculated smile. She said something under her breath that Amelia couldn't quite hear, but the tone was venomous. Then she added the supplement to the juice and presented it to Emma with a smile that looked warm and caring to anyone who didn't know what Amelia now knew. That was when Amelia made her decision. She was going to stop this. She was going to tell Marcus, and she was going to do everything in her power to make sure Dorothy never had access to Emma again. Amelia waited until evening when Emma was asleep. She had prepared carefully for this conversation. She had organized her evidence. She had rehearsed what she would say. She knew how unlikely her accusations sounded. She knew that Marcus had trusted Dorothy for 6 years. She knew that coming forward with this could cost her job, could damage her reputation, could make everything complicated and messy. But Emma's health was at stake. Emma's future was at stake. That was more important than her own comfort or safety. She knocked on the door to Marcus's study at 8 o'clock. He was working late, as he always did, reviewing documents and taking calls on a headset. He waved her in, gesturing for her to wait while he finished his conversation. Amelia stood silently in the doorway, gathering her courage. When he finally ended the call, he looked at her with a slight frown. "Is something wrong with Emma?" he asked immediately, his entire body tensing. "No. Emma's sleeping peacefully," Amelia said. "But I need to talk to you about something I've discovered. I need you to listen with an open mind, even though what I'm going to tell you will sound very serious." Marcus set down his phone and gave her his full attention. His eyes sharpened, his posture straightened. He was a man who had learned to read situations quickly, to assess threats, to understand when something required his complete focus. He knew how to listen, even if he didn't always know how to hear. "Sit down," he said, gesturing to the chair across from his desk. Amelia sat. She opened her phone and pulled up the photograph of the supplement bottle. She showed him the label and explained what she had found. She walked him through the ingredient list and the research she had conducted. She showed him the articles linking the supplement to symptoms identical to Emma's condition, and then she told him what she had observed. Dorothy giving it to Emma deliberately. Dorothy's expression when she did it. Dorothy's obvious knowledge that she was doing something she shouldn't be doing. Marcus listened without interrupting. His face remained impassive, but his hands clenched into fists on the desk. When Amelia finished, there was a long silence. Then Marcus said very quietly, "You're telling me that Dorothy has been deliberately making my daughter sick?" "That's what I'm saying," Amelia confirmed. "I don't know her motivation, but I know what I've seen, and I know what the research shows. That supplement is toxic, especially for children, especially over an extended period. It matches every symptom Emma has experienced." Marcus stood up abruptly. He walked to the window and looked out over the city. His shoulders were rigid with tension. Amelia waited. She could see the rage building in him, the helplessness, the betrayal. When he turned back to face her, his expression was controlled, but his voice was dangerous. "Show me everything you have," he said. Amelia spent the next 2 hours presenting her evidence to Marcus. She showed him every photograph, every article, every note she had taken. She explained her methodology and her reasoning. She acknowledged that she could be wrong, that coincidence was possible, that alternative explanations existed. But she also made clear that her instincts were telling her something was very wrong. Marcus listened and asked questions, detailed questions. He was thinking like a businessman now, like someone accustomed to investigating fraud and malfeasance. He asked about her sources. He asked about the reliability of the online information. He asked whether she had considered that someone else might be giving Emma the supplement. By the time they finished, it was past midnight. Marcus looked exhausted and furious in equal measure. "I need to verify this," he said finally. "I can't act on suspicion alone. Tomorrow morning I'm going to have someone I trust analyze that supplement. I'm going to consult with Emma's doctors about whether this could be the cause of her condition. And then I'm going to decide what to do about Dorothy. In the meantime, I need you to make sure Emma doesn't consume any more of that supplement. Can you do that?" "Absolutely," Amelia said. "I'll watch her constantly. I'll make sure nothing goes into her body that I haven't personally vetted. You have my word." Marcus nodded slowly. Then he said something that surprised Amelia. "Thank you for having the courage to tell me this. I know what it costs to accuse someone of something this serious. I know what it risks for you professionally. But you did it anyway because you care about Emma. I won't forget that." Amelia left the study and returned to her small room. She didn't sleep that night. She lay in the darkness thinking about what tomorrow would bring. She thought about Dorothy and wondered what could have driven someone to poison a child. She thought about Marcus and the weight of what he had just learned. Most of all, she thought about Emma, and about how her life might change when the truth came out. The morning arrived gray and cold. Amelia woke without having slept, her exhaustion replaced by a strange clarity. She went through her morning routine quietly, checking on Emma, who was still sleeping peacefully, unaware that her entire world was about to change. By 8 o'clock, Marcus had already set his plan in motion. He called his personal investigator, a woman named Christine Lee, who'd worked with him on numerous corporate matters over the years. Within an hour, Christine arrived at the penthouse with specialized equipment. Marcus handed her the supplement bottle without explanation and asked her to have it analyzed. He wanted to know exactly what was in it and whether it matched the ingredient list on the label. Christine didn't ask questions. She understood that when Marcus requested something this urgently, it was serious. She left with the bottle and promised results by afternoon. Next, Marcus called Dr. Whitmore, Emma's primary physician. He arranged an emergency consultation and told the doctor that he had discovered something important about Emma's condition, something that might explain everything. He asked Dr. Whitmore to clear her afternoon schedule. The doctor agreed, hearing something in Marcus's voice that conveyed urgency without hysteria. Throughout the morning, Amelia maintained her vigil over Emma. She prepared her breakfast and watched carefully as Emma ate every bite. She made sure no juice or drink was anything other than what she had personally prepared. Emma seemed confused by the heightened attention, but didn't complain. By noon, Christine called back. The results were devastating and exactly what Amelia had suspected. The supplement contained not just the ingredients listed on the label, but also several additional compounds that had no legitimate medical purpose. These included heavy metals in trace amounts and several plant toxins that, when consumed regularly over an extended period, could cause exactly the symptoms Emma had been experiencing. The purple patches, the infections, the fatigue, the overall decline in health. It was all consistent with chronic poisoning from this supplement. More damning still, Christine had traced the supplement back through pharmacy records. It had been purchased by Dorothy using cash at various health food stores over the past 3 years. The purchases occurred roughly once a month, each time in a different location to avoid detection. Christine had also discovered that Dorothy had a criminal record from decades ago. She had been arrested for elder abuse at a nursing home where she worked. The charges had been dropped when the victim recanted their testimony under circumstances that were never fully explained. Christine reported all of this to Marcus in a calm, professional tone that didn't hide the gravity of what she had uncovered. When Marcus hung up the phone, he sat in silence for a long moment. Then he called the police. By 2 o'clock that afternoon, 2 detectives arrived at the penthouse. Marcus showed them everything: the supplement bottle, Amelia's documentation, the articles about the toxic ingredients, the pharmacy records Christine had obtained. The detectives listened carefully and asked methodical questions. They explained that they would need to interview Dorothy, and that they would likely need to charge her with attempted murder or assault, or some variation depending on how the prosecutor decided to proceed. It was serious, very serious. Marcus told them that he wanted Dorothy arrested. He also wanted her kept away from Emma. The detectives assured him that was already in motion. By 3 o'clock, Dorothy was being escorted out of the penthouse by police. She didn't resist. She didn't cry. She simply looked at Marcus with an expression that was almost satisfied, like she had accomplished something. Later, investigators would discover that Dorothy had been planning this for years. She had harbored a deep resentment against Marcus for reasons that were never entirely clear to anyone. Some people speculated that it stemmed from jealousy over his wealth. Others thought it might have been connected to her own traumatic past. But Dorothy herself never fully explained her motivation. She maintained that she hadn't intended to actually kill Emma, only to make her sick enough that Marcus would suffer, that Marcus would finally understand pain the way she had suffered pain. She said it in the cold, clinical way of someone who had detached from the reality of what she had done. At 3:30, Marcus took Emma to see Dr. Whitmore. The doctor listened carefully as Marcus explained everything that had been discovered. Dr. Whitmore's face grew paler with each revelation. When Marcus finished, the doctor sat back in her chair looking completely shaken. "I should have caught this," she said quietly. "All these years, and I never thought to ask about supplements. I never considered that the illness might be external." Marcus didn't blame her. He explained that Dorothy had been very careful to hide what she was doing. The supplement was disguised to look legitimate. It had been given in such small amounts mixed into juice or food. No single doctor would have suspected poisoning without specific information to guide them. But now that they knew what to look for, the treatment plan could change entirely. Dr. Whitmore ordered blood tests for Emma immediately. The results came back within hours. The heavy metals and toxins were present in Emma's bloodstream, but at levels that suggested they could be removed with proper treatment. The good news was that Emma had not consumed the supplement for nearly 2 weeks now, since Amelia had discovered it. Her body was already beginning to naturally clear some of the toxins. With proper chelation therapy and supportive medical care, Dr. Whitmore believed that Emma could recover, not just improve, actually recover. The word hung in the air between them like something too precious to fully believe. Marcus asked Dr. Whitmore to repeat it. Emma could recover? Fully? The doctor nodded carefully. It's going to take time, she said. It's going to require specific treatment protocols. But yes, if what we suspect is true, and this was the cause of her illness, then yes, she should be able to recover completely. Marcus felt something crack open inside his chest. It was hope. Real hope. For the first time in 3 years. That evening, Marcus sat beside Emma's bed after she had fallen asleep. He looked at his daughter's face, still marked by the purple patches that would fade in time, and he felt gratitude so overwhelming that it brought tears to his eyes. He thought about Amelia. He thought about how a caregiver, someone he had hired almost by accident, had paid closer attention to his daughter than all the doctors and specialists combined. She had seen what no one else could see. She had had the courage to speak up when it would have been easier to stay quiet. She had saved Emma's life. The next morning, Marcus called Amelia into his office. She came nervously, uncertain whether she was about to be thanked or blamed for the chaos of the previous day. Marcus gestured for her to sit, and then he said something that changed everything. I want to restructure your employment, he said. I want to make you Emma's primary guardian and health advocate. I want to give you an ownership stake in our household organization, and I want to quadruple your salary. More than that, I want you to consider staying with us not as an employee, but as part of this family. Amelia's eyes filled with tears. She had not expected this. She had expected gratitude, perhaps. But this was something far more. It was recognition of her value. It was inclusion. It was acceptance. She said yes before Marcus even finished speaking. Over the following weeks, Emma began her treatment. The chelation therapy was designed to help her body expel the accumulated toxins. It was uncomfortable, but not painful. More importantly, it worked. The purple patches began to fade, not quickly but noticeably. Within 2 weeks, they had lightened from deep purple to a lighter lavender. Within 4 weeks, they had faded to the point where they were barely visible. More than the physical changes, Emma's energy began to return. She had more stamina. She could walk farther without tiring. She could play for longer stretches without needing to rest. Her appetite increased. Her complexion improved. The infections that had plagued her became less frequent and less severe. By the 6th week, Emma was tested again. Her blood work showed dramatically reduced levels of the toxins. Dr. Whitmore declared that Emma was recovering faster than expected. By the 8th week, the purple patches were almost completely gone. By the 10th week, Emma was declared medically healthy. She had been given a second chance at life, and she was seizing it with the joy only a child could express. Emma began attending school in person for the first time in 3 years. Not part-time, full-time. She made friends. She participated in physical education. She went to birthday parties and had play dates. She was a normal kid doing normal kid things, and the happiness in her face was almost blinding in its intensity. Marcus watched his daughter flourish, and he understood that his life had been irrevocably changed. His priorities had shifted. He cut back his business hours. He attended school events. He had dinner with Emma every night. He hired a management team to run his company so that he could be present for his daughter's recovery and her new life. He also made sure that Dorothy was prosecuted to the full extent of the law. She was convicted of attempted murder and sentenced to 15 years in prison. During the trial, More victims came forward. Other families who had employed Dorothy in the past had experienced similar situations. Their children had gotten mysteriously sick while under Dorothy's care. Once she was arrested, those children's conditions had mysteriously improved. The prosecutors compiled a damning case against her. Dorothy showed no remorse. She served her sentence in an attitude of cold defiance, never explaining why she had done what she did beyond her vague claims about Marcus needing to suffer. But she was imprisoned, and that meant she could never harm another child again. Amelia became so much more than Emma's caregiver. She became the stable emotional anchor in Emma's life. She helped the girl navigate the transition back to normal school. She supported her through the medical recovery. She was present for every doctor's appointment, every physical therapy session, every moment of improvement. She celebrated each milestone and provided comfort when Emma had difficult days. More than that, she provided something Emma had desperately needed: unconditional love. A woman who was not her mother, but who cared for her with the fierceness of a mother. A woman who had risked everything to protect her. Emma began calling Amelia by a new name sometime during her recovery. She stopped saying Miss Amelia, or just Amelia. She started calling her Mom. At first it was tentative, like she wasn't sure if it was allowed, but Amelia never corrected her. She simply smiled and said yes. "I'm here," and held Emma close whenever the girl needed holding. Marcus watched this relationship develop, and he felt only gratitude. His daughter had lost so much. Having someone like Amelia to love her made everything better. One afternoon, about 4 months into Emma's recovery, Marcus called both Emma and Amelia into his study. He had something to show them. He pulled out a document and explained that he had been working with his lawyers on something important. He had established a trust for Emma's future. He had also made legal arrangements that, should anything happen to him, guardianship of Emma would pass automatically to Amelia. Emma looked confused by the legal language, but she understood the essence of what her father was saying. Amelia would always be there for her. Amelia would always be her mother. She ran into Amelia's arms and held on tight. But more significantly, Marcus was changing his will. He was making Amelia the executor of his estate and a beneficiary in her own right. He was ensuring that when he died, Amelia would have the resources to care for Emma and to live comfortably. He was making it legal and official and permanent. "This isn't just about gratitude," he said carefully. "This is about acknowledging that you are family, that you have always been family to us, whether we named it that way or not. I want it recognized in law. I want there to be no question that you belong here." The emotions in the room ran deep and complex. Emma cried happy tears. Amelia cried tears of relief and belonging. Marcus cried tears of gratitude and grace. They held each other for a long moment, this makeshift family that had come together through crisis and discovered something unbreakable in the process. A year after Emma's recovery began, Marcus organized a celebration. He wanted to mark the occasion of Emma's return to health. He wanted to acknowledge the role that Amelia had played in saving his daughter's life. He threw a party in the penthouse, inviting Emma's teachers, her friends from school, Amelia's sisters and family members who had been so supportive during everything that had happened. Emma wore a beautiful dress and ran around the apartment with other children her age, healthy and happy and completely alive. She had color in her cheeks, and strength in her limbs, and hope in her eyes. She was everything her father had dreamed she could be. Amelia stood with Marcus on the balcony overlooking the city, watching the party happen inside. Marcus put his arm around her shoulders in a gesture that was both grateful and affectionate. He said, "You gave her life back. You gave me my daughter back. I don't think there's any way to adequately thank you." Amelia smiled. She was thinking about how far she had come from the woman who had knocked on the door of this penthouse a year ago, desperate for a job, seeking a place to disappear. She was thinking about how one moment of courage had changed everything. She was thinking about Emma, who now called her Mom, who hugged her every morning before school and every evening before bed. She was thinking about how love, real love, didn't have to follow conventional paths. It just had to be genuine. "You already have," she said simply, "by letting me be part of your family, by trusting me with the most precious thing in your life, by making it legal and real and forever." That's more than enough. Over the next several years, life settled into a rhythm that none of them had experienced before. Emma thrived. She was an excellent student. She made friends easily. She participated in soccer and drama club and developed a genuine love for science. She was a normal, healthy child with dreams and ambitions, and a future that stretched before her bright and full of possibility. Marcus restructured his career. He stepped back from day-to-day operations of his company, remaining as chairman, but hiring a talented CEO to handle the business. He focused instead on philanthropy. He started a foundation dedicated to investigating mysterious illnesses in children, funding research and providing resources to families who were struggling with unexplained conditions. He donated millions to medical schools and research institutions. He became a voice in the conversation about the importance of careful diagnosis and the dangers of overlooking external causes of illness. The foundation saved lives. It helped families get accurate diagnoses when doctors were stumped. It provided treatment options that might otherwise have been unavailable to families who couldn't afford them. Marcus's wealth, which had once felt like both a blessing and a curse, became a tool for genuine good in the world. Amelia became the director of the foundation's family support services. She brought her unique perspective to helping families navigate the terrifying experience of having a sick child with no answers. She had lived through it. She had fought for answers. She understood both the hope and the desperation. She knew how to listen. She knew how to advocate. She knew how to never give up, even when the situation seemed hopeless. The three of them, Marcus and Emma and Amelia, became a real family in every way that mattered. They took vacations together. They celebrated holidays together. They supported each other through the ordinary ups and downs of life. When Emma had a nightmare, Amelia held her. When Amelia had a difficult day at work, Marcus listened and offered support. When Marcus faced challenges with his business or his foundation, both Emma and Amelia stood beside him. They had come together through tragedy and poison and betrayal. But they had transformed that tragedy into something beautiful. They had built a family based not on blood, but on love and commitment and the daily choice to show up for each other. On Emma's 13th birthday, as she stood before a gathering of friends and family, she gave a speech about gratitude. She talked about the year she was sick. She talked about how scared she had been. She talked about how a woman named Amelia had noticed something wrong and had had the courage to speak up about it. She talked about how her father had believed in that woman and had fought for the truth. She talked about how both of them had saved her life in ways both big and small. And then she said something that brought the entire room to tears. My mother, who gave birth to me, couldn't stay. But my mom, Amelia, chose to stay. She chose me every single day. She chose to love me and protect me and fight for me. Not because she had to, but because she wanted to. That's what makes her my real mom. Not DNA, not a birth certificate. Just the choice to love. That's what makes you family. Later that evening, as Emma was getting ready for bed, she hugged both Marcus and Amelia tightly. She whispered to them, "Thank you for not giving up on me. Thank you for saving my life. Thank you for being my family." And in that moment, with his daughter in his arms and the woman he had come to love as a partner in life beside him, Marcus understood the true nature of wealth. It wasn't the penthouse or the company or the billions in his bank account. It was this. It was Emma healthy and happy. It was Amelia here beside him, fully part of their lives. It was the knowledge that he had almost lost everything that mattered and had been given a second chance to get it right. It was family, real family, built on choice and commitment and unconditional love. As the years continued to unfold, Emma grew into a remarkable young woman. She became a physician, driven by her own experience to understand illness and help patients. She worked in pediatric medicine, specializing in cases that other doctors considered unsolvable. She brought to her work a unique compassion born from having been sick, having been scared, having been saved by people who refused to give up on her. Amelia watched her daughter graduate from medical school with tears of pride streaming down her face. Marcus stood beside her, equally proud, equally moved. Emma had come so far from the sick little girl in the purple patches. She had become a healer herself. The foundation that Marcus had created in Emma's name continued to grow and help families around the world. It became recognized as one of the premier organizations for investigating mysterious pediatric illnesses. Thousands of families received help. Thousands of children received diagnoses that had eluded other doctors. Thousands of lives were saved or dramatically improved because of the resources the foundation provided. And it had all started because one woman had noticed something wrong and had the courage to speak up about it. Because one man had believed her and had fought for the truth. Because one little girl had survived and thrived and never forgot the people who had loved her through her darkest time. On a quiet Sunday morning, 5 years after Emma's full recovery, Marcus sat in his study surrounded by photographs. He had been organizing the family archives, something Amelia had suggested as a way to preserve their memories. The pictures told the story of their journey. Emma as a sick child with the purple patches barely visible in some photos. Emma in the hospital during her chelation therapy, looking uncertain, but brave. Emma on her first day back at school, her face radiant with possibility. Emma at her high school graduation, her parents beaming beside her. Emma in her medical school white coat, the future doctor ready to save others. But there were other photographs too. Candid moments that Marcus treasured even more. Emma and Amelia baking together in the kitchen, flour in Amelia's hair, and joy on both their faces. Marcus holding Emma's hand as they walked through the park on a summer day. The three of them on vacation in Hawaii, laughing at something someone had said. Emma hugging Amelia before her first day of medical school. Amelia and Marcus dancing at Emma's high school prom. The girl watching them with love and amusement in her eyes. These photographs represented something Marcus had never had before his daughter got sick. They represented a family that had chosen each other. They represented love that had been tested and had survived intact. He heard a knock on the study door and looked up to see Amelia standing in the doorway, holding 2 cups of coffee. She handed him one and settled into the chair beside his desk, the same chair where she had sat years ago to present her devastating evidence about Dorothy. "Come look at these," Marcus said, gesturing to the photographs spread across his desk. Amelia smiled as she looked through them, occasionally picking one up to examine it more closely. "Look at this one," she said, holding up a photo from Emma's 5th birthday after her recovery. Emma's face was completely clear of the purple patches. Her smile was wide and genuine. Her eyes shone with the joy of a child who had been given her life back. Marcus nodded, remembering that day perfectly. Emma had insisted on having a beach party. She wanted to run in the sand and splash in the water and feel alive in every possible way. They had rented a private section of beach for the day. Emma had invited all her friends from school. There had been laughter and games and cake and the simple miracle of a healthy child celebrating her life. "That was the first time you told me you loved me," Amelia said softly. "Do you remember?" Marcus did remember. They had been sitting on the beach watching Emma play with her friends. Emma had run over to them, sandy and wet and completely happy, and she had thrown her arms around both of them and said, "I love you, Mommy and Daddy. I'm so happy we're a family." It had been the moment when everything that had been unspoken between Marcus and Amelia had become real and acknowledged. He had put his arm around her. She had leaned her head on his shoulder, and they had both understood that this was forever. Not just temporary, not just an employment arrangement. Forever. Over the following months, Marcus and Amelia's relationship had slowly deepened from partnership into something more romantic. It had happened gradually, naturally, without forcing anything. There had been a night when Marcus had brought Amelia flowers for no particular reason, and she had cried because no one had ever done that for her before. There had been a day when Amelia had realized she was in love with Marcus and had spoken that truth to him, terrified of his response, only to have him tell her that he had been in love with her for months. There had been quiet moments of holding hands, stolen kisses when they thought Emma wasn't watching, though Emma had actually known and approved entirely. When Marcus had proposed to Amelia on the rooftop of the penthouse, with the city spread out beneath them and Emma cheering from the side, it had felt like the most natural thing in the world. They had gotten married in an intimate ceremony with close friends and family. Emma had been the maid of honor. She had cried happy tears throughout the ceremony and had been the first to congratulate them as husband and wife. That had been 3 years ago. Now, sitting in his study looking at the photographs, Marcus felt a deep sense of gratitude that bordered on overwhelming. He thought about how different his life would have been if he had never hired Amelia. He thought about the darkness that might have continued had she not noticed the supplement. He thought about the possibility that Emma might have died, that he might have lived out his days not knowing why his daughter was sick, believing it was simply bad luck and poor genetics. Instead, he had been given a second chance. He had been given a family. He had been given a wife who loved him and a daughter who adored them both. He had been given purpose beyond money and success. He had been given meaning. "I was thinking," Marcus said to Amelia, "about how different everything would have been if you hadn't come to work for us. If you hadn't noticed the supplement. If you hadn't had the courage to speak up. If any one of those things had gone differently, we wouldn't be here now. We wouldn't be us." Amelia reached over and took his hand. "We would have found our way," she said, "though I know what you mean. I think about it too. I think about how I almost didn't take this job. The agency offered me 3 positions, and I almost chose a different one. I think about how I almost didn't notice that bottle. How I almost talked myself out of telling you what I suspected. How many times the universe almost put us on a different path. But it didn't. We're here. We're together. And Emma is healthy and happy and living the life she was always meant to live. That's what matters." Marcus pulled out a small leather box from his desk drawer. Inside was a diamond necklace, delicate and beautiful. He had commissioned it months ago with a specific design in mind. The pendant contained 3 birthstones, 1 for each member of their family, 1 for Emma, 1 for Amelia, 1 for himself. He had engraved on the back the date that Amelia had discovered the supplement, the day that everything changed, the day that their family truly began. "I want to give you this," he said, fastening the necklace around her neck so that the pendant rested against her heart. "So that you always remember. Not just that day when you saved Emma's life, but all the days after. All the days when you chose us. Every single day you woke up and chose to be our family. That's what I want you to remember." Amelia looked down at the necklace, running her fingers over the pendant. Tears streamed down her face, but she was smiling. "I don't need a necklace to remember," she said, "but I'll wear it anyway. I'll wear it every day for the rest of my life. Because you're right, it wasn't just that one day. It's every day. It's the choice to love. It's the commitment to family. It's knowing that I belong here, that I'm home." That evening, the 3 of them had dinner together in their favorite restaurant, a place that had become something of a tradition for them. Emma was home from medical school for the weekend. She was talking excitedly about a particularly challenging case she had been studying, about a young patient whose symptoms had initially puzzled everyone until careful observation and thorough investigation had revealed the actual cause of the illness. "It was almost like my own story," Emma had said, laughing. "Except I'm the doctor now instead of the patient. I get to be the one who figures out what's wrong and helps people feel better." Both Marcus and Amelia listened with pride, radiating from every part of their beings. This young woman, brilliant and compassionate and determined to help others, had come so far from the sick child she once was. She was going to change lives. She was going to save people. She was going to make the world a better place. And she was doing it all because she had survived something that should have killed her. Because she had been loved fiercely by people who refused to give up on her. On the drive home from the restaurant, Emma sat in the back seat and reached forward to grab both of her parents' hands. "You know I'm grateful, right?" she said. "I know I don't say it every day anymore because we've moved past the gratitude into just living our lives. But I want you to know that I haven't forgotten. I haven't forgotten what you did for me. Either of you. Dad, you believed in Amelia when she told you something that sounded impossible. You acted on that belief even though it put you at risk of looking foolish. And Mom, you noticed something that no doctor noticed. You paid attention when everyone else was too distracted to see. You risked everything to tell the truth. You both saved my life. And then you gave me more than my life back. You gave me a family. You gave me security and love and a sense of belonging that I didn't have before. I'm only in medical school because you both fought for me. I'm only alive because you both chose me. I just want you to know that I know that. And I'm grateful. Every single day, I'm grateful." Marcus felt tears streaming down his face. He pulled the car over to the side of the road and turned around to embrace his daughter. Amelia joined them, the three of them holding each other in the darkness of the parked car, connected by bonds that went far deeper than blood. This was family, not defined by genetics or circumstance, defined by choice and commitment, and the fierce, unbreakable love that came from fighting for each other. Finally, we've reached the end of this story. I'm extremely happy that you've made it this far. Thank you very much for watching. Comment below what you thought and what was the best or worst part. Don't forget to subscribe. Until next time.